You were born with individual strengths and a unique purpose. Don't let fears, false beliefs, or life's happenings diminish your influence. It's time to live and lead for impact. Host Kirsten Ross, expert of transformation, will help you defeat the drama and overcome the trauma that can stop you in your tracks. You'll gain focus, find confidence, and take bold action. Unleash passionate, purposeful you. Let's go.
Welcome to the Live and Lead for Impact podcast. I'm Kirsten Ross, your host, and this is episode number 147. I'm super excited for this guest that I have today. Her name is Martha Blessing, and she has been doing some amazing work to make her impact, and I can't wait for you to hear what she's up to. And she also has an incredible story that has motivated her journey. So welcome, Martha.
Hi, Kirsten. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being here today. And let's just dive right in because we were just laughing because we said, I think we could talk forever. We better get rolling. And I feel the same way about this interview. Like, we better just dive right in. So tell me, let's just start with what life experiences have motivated you to make your impact?
Sure, absolutely. So I started out in my working career as a registered nurse. And about 2 years into that, I ended up having 3 back surgeries, living in a wheelchair, and being told that I would never walk again.
Wow.
Yeah. And also being diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So the world of Western medicine that I was trained in and working in didn't offer me solutions to fix any of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And it inspired me to start looking and to start listening. And at one point, I was taking just massive quantities of prescription drugs and narcotics, right? And
Wow.
and we know now, pretty much any community in the United States, you can turn on the news and hear about an opioid crisis.
Yeah.
And it's truly by the grace of God, or whatever you want to call that divine power, become one of those statistics because I was taking so many medications. And I actually had a somewhat mystical experience when I was sitting in the doctor's office and they told me that I would never walk again. And I heard a voice tell me, don't take this. You don't have to accept this.
Mm.
And quite honestly, at the time, I thought it was a narcotic overdose.
Yeah.
I thought I was hearing things. I really, truly did.
Uh-huh.
And so it turns out I would have to say that, years later now, I recognize that voice was my higher self, my inner voice, my pilot light, telling me that there was another way.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Keep looking, keep searching. Don't accept that. So that's what started the journey for me into holistic health and holistic healing and energy medicine and getting myself out of that wheelchair.
So how long did it take?
Getting out of the wheelchair was about 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was another 1.5 years of really rehabilitating myself, being able to really function fully, being able to walk, because I lost all the reflexes in my left leg from my knee down.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was some, when discs are pressing, or there's herniated discs, or there's a severing of any area in that spinal cord and whatnot, there can be obviously permanent damage.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't really sure. And to them, according to their films, it was permanent.
So thank goodness you didn't listen.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah,
was your
absolutely.
work, your healing, was it you doing research and engaging in the healing on your own, or did you find practitioners to help you?
All of the above.
Mm-hmm.
All of the above. I started with energy medicine. I started with acupuncture. I started with mind-body techniques. So meditation, stillness. I learned how to get more in touch with my own physical body.
Mm-hmm.
And I also learned about the emotional, mental, and often spiritual connection to our physical illnesses.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So let me think of giving a good example for you. Western medicine will say, or the statistics say, that 75 to 90% of illness is stress related, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but what is that, right? Like when we go into the doctor's office, they don't have a stress-o-meter that they hook us up to say, oh, it's this much, right? And they say, oh, you need to manage your stress. But if we really break it down, stress is our mental, emotional reactions, our feelings and our reactions to events that are happening in our life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We have money fears, we have relationship fears, we have all of this underlying stuff. And a lot of it comes from us being pre-programmed by our family into certain beliefs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody is raised, and I don't want to make this about religion in any way, but if somebody is raised Catholic, or let's say, I'll give you a different example. If somebody is raised in a family of, say, truck drivers,
Mm-hmm.
and it's generations and generations, that's what they did, or they worked in a steel mill or whatever. A lot of times it's you do what your parents did, or you did what the family did, and you'll hear several generations of doing such and such.
Mm-hmm.
If the dominant culture in that family is working in a factory or being very manly, in a manly profession, if a son is in that family and he has a calling in his heart and his soul and his spirit to become the next, amazing dancer,
Mm-hmm.
a ballet dancer or a jazz dancer or whatever, some kind of dancer, that's not accepted in his family culture.
Mm-hmm.
That creates a stress for him.
Mm-hmm.
That changes the beliefs. Is he going to stay in that culture of working in a job that's what his family says he should do? Or is he going to break free and do something different?
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of going against what our parents say or what someone tells us we should do. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's just so we have all of these mental, emotional, spiritual aspects that we want to be loved, we want to fit in, we want to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so often we are going against what's really in our heart. And when that happens, it affects the energy of our body, the energy of our being. We cut ourselves off.
Mm.
And that creates illness.
Mm-hmm.
It creates emotional pain. It creates fear. The best way that I can explain the idea and the concept about energy medicine is we literally are containers of energy. And if we can start to make that shift in understanding that that's really what we are, then we can learn that everything that goes in and out is affecting our energy. And we have complete control over that.
Boy, that thought motivates you to be way more intentional.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It truly does. It truly does. It truly does. We, having been in Western medicine all those years, so when we go to the doctor and we're having a checkup and they want to know how our heart is working, they do an EKG, an electrocardiogram. The word energy is right there with electricity, doing an electrocardiogram. And so what do? They hook up these electrodes on the outside of our body to measure how the inside of our heart is working. Right? Like if you think about that, no one ever really thinks about that. They just lay on the table and do it, okay, is it good? Does it look good? But they don't think about, or they don't know really what's actually happening. Right? So it's measuring our heart, and what it's measuring, right? They get a printout of paper and there's these lines all over it. Those are waves. They're waves of energy. Same way that they, what's the test? The lie detector, right? When they hook a polygraph, right? And you see the little needle go up and down. What is it measuring? Right? It's measuring energy. It's measuring fear, right? They know what happens to the nervous system when we tell a lie. Same thing. So imagine that energy. We can measure all of these things, which means that's all we are. We're energetic beings. Same thing with our brain. Someone's in a coma, or God forbid, it's an electroencephalogram. How do they know if someone's brain, they're measuring the electrical energy? So everything about us is energy.
I love the illustrations that you're using because, you're right. We don't really think about it in those terms. No. And when I think about that lie detector test in particular, it's like, there's an energetic reaction to a thought that you're having.
And to fear.
Yeah.
Right? When you
tell the
a
fear
lie,
of being caught, right?
Yes. When you tell a lie, whether it's to yourself or to someone else, it does something to your energy. And what it does is it constricts your energy. Yeah. It slows it down. And so what happens when we have illness and we have stress, when our shoulders hurt, we're saying or doing something sometimes, and most of the time it is subconscious, but that's creating an energetic pattern in our body. That's a stress pattern. Our bodies truly do know how to be healthy. That's their natural state. There is order to our body and to that energy.
Yeah. And I love that whole philosophy of this kind of healing, that whole, like, my body knows, my body wants to be well, my body's working to be well.
Yeah. Absolutely it is.
And there's just stuff in the way.
What I say, that the solution to it all is, number one, the way out is in. and what are we feeding it? Not just food. Yeah. Food is energy. When you think about food, right, we've gotten so far away from how to nourish and nurture ourselves.
Right.
And so what is it, if we asked on a daily basis, like, what would nurture me? What would nourish me? On a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and learning and understanding that for ourselves, like knowing ourselves that well, that we're not giving away all of our power to something or someone outside ourselves.
Yep. And I love how you put the nourish and nurture together. Because I think we do think most often about nourishing our bodies, but not the nurturing ourselves. I mean, I feel like that's secondary. They're both so important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So describe the impact that you're working to make. Kind of, if you had to summarize, what are you helping people do? What's the impact, the difference that you're making in the world? And how are you making that impact?
Thank you. It has evolved over the years. And so right now, I'm really focused on teaching and empowering people who are living with challenges like anxiety, depression, migraines, insomnia, digestive issues, all of these things that are somewhat stress-related health problems, to be completely at choice and in control of their health and their lives. And to, if they desire to get off medications and have the freedom to live their life without fear and without restrictions. That's really where my passion is lying right now, because it's about freedom. It's about having the freedom. I work with a lot of clients who have anxiety and depression, and they are energetic imbalances that once you understand what's happening, you have the ability to, it's like taking the pressure off the pressure valve, a pressure cooker, right? You just slowly release that. It's energy that's built up and congested in certain areas. And so rather than, because if we just take the medications, we miss the opportunity to step into the truth of who we are and who, like, our authentic self and what we came here to be and do. To me, I want to be able to create more leaders. And when you don't feel good, or your energy is constricted, or you can't follow your heart, then you can't step into your brilliance and the leadership that you came here to be.
Yes. So describe how you do this work with people. How do you connect with them to do this work?
I connect with them through coaching and mentoring through the programs that I offer. So I have a couple of different programs, and there's basically a 5-part strategy. First is to get to the cause. What's the underlying cause? I happen to have, that's my superpower, is being able to, no matter where they are, when I talk to people, I am able to uncover and discern and tune into what the underlying cause is, where the imbalances are, where the core wounds are, the things that have been unresolved. And so it's getting to the cause, and then getting to clarity is the second part. And helping them to get clarity to create a plan and clear the obstacles and clear the blocks. A lot of times it's the subconscious programming. It's things, from the time we're born to about 7 or 8 years old, our subconscious mind is not developed. We don't have the ability to reject what's being dumped in there. And so we follow unwillingly many times, right? So it's going through and clearing out those blocks. And I take people through a process of doing that in the work that we do, in the coaching that we do. And then it's helping them connect to their core values. And then also the accountability. Being able to support someone through those steps, because it's work. I'm not going to lie. It's work.
Yeah, you're not throwing fairy dust at them.
No.
They're gonna dive.
I'm all out of fairy dust.
Darn. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the difficult work. So holding them accountable to doing that tough work that is going to be uncomfortable.
To themselves, because deep down, people will acknowledge. I talked with a gentleman last week, and his vision was just beautiful. I mean, just gorgeous. He has stepped into a new leadership role as the leader for a tech startup company, and he feels insecure in his abilities. And so we talked about what are those insecurities and where do they come from? And he was talking to me about things from when he was a kid. Judgments that he has held on to, negative self-beliefs since he was a child. And this man's in his 50s now. He's in his mid-50s. So how do we reprogram that, right? And how do we stop it from stopping him from stepping into the leadership role? And, it's the inner critic, right? It's that shame and the inner critic. So many people, I did it for years. That was the root of my illness, was shame. I grew up in a household that was just, the shame was dumped on me. It was poured into me. And so that was the process of getting clear and then moving that out and stepping into the truth, right? Who am I really? I'm this energy being, and I can choose and I can control what I put in and what I take out.
Yeah.
I'm at choice about this. So I'm going to choose not to believe this. I'm going to choose to reframe it and see, wow, I've done this and this and this, right? We just have to kind of tweak things and change our lens.
Right.
And move into that place. So, in talking with him, then we can come to this. He's like, oh, I see this now. Yes, I want to work with you. How does this affect me? And I don't want to stay in this place. I want to become the leader that I know I can be, but I don't understand what's getting in the way.
Yeah. So you help them uncover that core thing that's sitting somewhere.
Yeah.
You got to identify it before you can do something with it, and then you help them clear it.
Yes. Because eventually, if we don't, that becomes illness.
Yeah.
Right. When we, here's how I look at breast cancer. That is an area that is for nourishing ourselves. It's not just for, like with women, not just feeding babies. It's for feeding ourselves. It's for having an open and a full heart. And so many times women don't have that self-love.
Right.
And so when we're dissing ourselves and down on ourselves, that is a pattern of energy that our body absorbs in an area that we're not nurturing ourselves, not feeding ourselves, not feeding our heart, not feeding our soul, right? It's literally like a virus.
Yeah.
That we create in ourselves.
Your work is so important. So tell me, what has been the biggest internal or external challenge that you've had to overcome? And of course, I mean, if we start back in the wheelchair, that probably goes without say, but maybe since then, because it sounds like what happened is you learned how to heal yourself and then turn towards healing others. Yes. So as you were doing that, what were some of the challenges that you had to overcome?
Honestly, I would say through most of my life, it was negative self-talk. It was learning to stop being in agreement with the inner critic. Stop agreeing with the story. And to release the feelings of shame. it's a big stumbling block for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Of unworthiness, I think, is really what it is. Maybe not as much shame, but unworthiness. I'm not good enough to do whatever this is.
I want to ask too, was there dissonance? You had been in the kind of quote unquote traditional medical field, and now you were shifting over, earlier when you talked about, your illustration was the family of truck drivers and the dancer. Was there any element of that you had to overcome as well?
Absolutely. Well, the things that are going through my mind right now. You know what? I come from a family, I'm actually a third generation of intuitives and healers. But it sort of skipped, like nobody else in my family really, it skipped a couple of generations. I had my father's great cousin was a chiropractor in New York in the early 1920s. And that was like, chiropractors are accepted now, mostly mainstream, but in the 1920s, they were like witch doctors.
Right.
Interestingly enough, my family didn't really reject it, but they didn't embrace it.
Mm-hmm.
And within the medical community, I started my training as a certified healing touch practitioner. And that training started as a continuing education course for nurses in Colorado.
Wow.
Yes. And the science has been there for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
Healing touch now is about, I would say, 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so it followed a nursing paradigm as far as, intake and assessment and getting certified and trained in that. You had to have a nurse as a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
So that you could actually, and so there are tools to actually assess a person's energy in their body and document it, just like a doctor or a nurse documents in your chart in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And so fortunately, that was the beginning or in the early stages of my learning and my growth. And because of that, I had enough tools and enough wisdom to be able to talk to people in the medical community.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to, they still looked at me like I'd grown 6 heads, but I could still talk their language intelligently
to bridge the
about
gap.
energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. And, let me say this, if I fall or get in a car accident and break my leg, please take me to the hospital, and save my life and stop the bleeding, because that's what medicine is there for.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly is there. But I also say there's no amount of broccoli and red peppers that we're going to eat that's going to make up for a disconnect in ourselves when we're out of alignment with ourselves, and we close ourselves off from our natural, authentic self and energy.
Yeah.
So I, for whatever reason, have been given the gifts of being a bit of being bold enough to, even though I would have the negative self-talk from the inner critic, I never let that stop me. I still sort of have a big mouth. We'll say, we'll speak my truth, right? I'll speak it. And if they don't like it, that's okay. Then, okay, we can both move on. But because I feel that we don't know who needs to hear what it is we have to say, right? When you go to speak to audiences or to people, you don't know who's there that needs to hear what you have to say. And it may not be today or even tomorrow. It might be a month or next year, but it's stuck with them. And when they're ready to process it and move into it, it's there for them. So that was probably my biggest challenge is just speaking it no matter what.
Mm-hmm. I remember years ago when I had that epiphany of releasing control of what was not in my control anyway, in speaking, because I used to be attached to, I have to say it in a way or use words in a way that people in this audience can connect, can understand, and then it hit me. It's like, no, I'm just there to give the information. It's their job to take it in. And if it's going to land, it's going to land okay. It was actually in rereading this book. Shoot, and now I'm forgetting the name of it, but Power of Intention. And I had read it years ago. And there was a whole chapter that I hadn't highlighted anything. And I'm a highlighter. I highlight, I earmark, I write.
I am too.
Then, so years later, I pulled the book back out. And now that chapter spoke to me. And it's like, wait a minute. Yeah, the information was there. It wasn't speaking to me then, but it is now. But anyway, that epiphany and then the freedom that gave to... Yeah, I'm just sharing the information. It's going to land where it's needed now, and then plant seeds. Or maybe some people are going to walk away with, but it's not my job. I'm just there to give the information.
Yes. And but that, is a struggle, right? When we're sort of blazing a trail, and it feels awkward.
Yep. But and then that releasing control though, and realizing like it's okay. It's okay if it doesn't land. That's yes. So tell me how you stay motivated and moving during tough times.
Every single day I start in my meditation room. Every single day, because back to the energy, right? The energy is built there. Like that room in my house has a certain energy. And when I sit there in my meditation chair, I can become instantly connected to my center. And to me, having that stillness and breathing and just connecting back into my heart, into my center, into my purpose of why I'm here and what I'm doing, because we are putting ourselves out there. We are challenging ourselves. If we're not growing, right? And so there's still fear for me, no matter how many times I do something, no matter how many times I get on a stage or speak to somebody. That's what I said when, before we got on, it's like, no matter how many podcasts I do, I still feel anxious and still feel fear sometimes. So when I start that space in the morning, no matter what's going on, I look at my day and I set a tone to stay focused in what my purpose is.
I love that.
So that I don't, have to talk myself down from the ledge too many times.
Right. Now, how long do you stay there in the morning?
Usually about 30 minutes.
30 minutes? Okay.
Yeah. I'm the reverse of most people. I could sit in meditation for hours. That's my happy place. I can go deep into meditation and just experience so much bliss and peace that I don't want to come out. So I set the timer now for 30 minutes because otherwise I'll be there.
Wow.
Too long.
Yeah. Well, I admire that. Yes, I am adding meditation back in. I'm declaring that.
Excellent.
Yes, you're motivating me. No, I had been doing that for a while and I loved it. And it did, isn't it crazy how something is, it's doing good work inside of you? And then why is it that we don't continue?
It's cumulative.
We get sidetracked.
It's cumulative. The energy builds, number one. Number two, I know that if I'm having trouble making a decision about something, or I just feel like things are going around in my head too much and I can't get clear, the energy is so built in that space that I can just walk in that room sometimes And just by walking in there, the answer will come to me immediately and I can walk back out
again. That's awesome.
So when you do it, it builds.
Yeah.
It builds.
Awesome. So what words of wisdom do you have for others who are working to make their impact in the world?
Don't quit.
Okay.
Don't quit and get support. Get support. I have so many people tell me that, well, I've had people say to me, like, why would you need a coach, right? I have 2 or 3 coaches. Why would I need a coach? Because coaches can see things that we can't see. They can help us move through things. And I tell people, therapy is for healing the past. Coaching and mentoring is for creating your future. That's the difference. Like, excuse me, people will come to me and they'll say, oh, I've been in therapy for 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a difference between the two.
Yes.
And we think that we have to manage everything on our own. We have to be strong. We have to, show how great we are. And we are great. But it's not a weakness to get support and to get guidance and to get mentoring and to get coaching.
Yeah.
And I wish I had done that sooner in my life and in my career and in my work.
That's really good. That's very good advice. And you're right. And I'm sure you've experienced this too. How many times have you had someone who's been in therapy for a long time and all of a sudden, and there is absolutely a place for that. It's, valuable resource. But when some of that healing's happened and yes, they're getting ready to start to create a future. I know they express, and I'm sure you've heard this, just the excitement that they feel for starting to do that kind of work, looking into a future. And designing it and strategizing it and the action involved. Of course, we as humans, we have this whole, instant gratification thing. And if we're not go, it doesn't feel like we're effective. And those cocoon phases are important. And that work that you're doing through the therapy has to happen. But yes, I love that coaching is creating the future.
Yeah.
Perfect.
What I found is that, when we have, this was true for me, when we have big dreams or we have big visions, I could always see the end result, but I couldn't, like, I would jump from where I was to the end result. I had difficulty in integrating and carrying out step by step to get there. And so I think that's a big piece, is having that support step by step that, and I always say, nobody fails. We just stop. Yeah. And sometimes the dreams are big and it's a longer path than what I say it's like building a house. It's going to cost you more time and more money than you think.
Right. Right. That's for sure.
That's been my experience.
Yes. Or remodeling, any of the above. Yes. It always takes.
Yeah, it does. Like, we start out and it's the truth.
More time and resources than anticipated.
Yes. And so I think that is a piece, because we are in that instant gratification culture, and there's a tendency to stop rather than pause when it takes too long or it's harder than we think, because we're going to have to grow and change as individuals.
And that sense of it should have happened already. If it's going to happen, it would have happened already. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Instead of, letting it play out. I'm getting the visual too of, to continue on with the analogy of the building the house or the remodeling. How many times do you walk into someone's house and the bathroom's almost done, but the trim isn't up, Right? The same kind of thing.
Yes. You don't get to that last bit.
Right. Those last little
Yeah, because
pieces.
you're exhausted by the time you get to the trim. Oh, never mind.
Right. And then and that is the little piddly stuff that is just like, and it's a lot more exciting, well, one, if you're in the mood to do the demo, right? That's that's a whole nother, kind of energy release probably. And then, but yeah, and then the big vision and the bigger stuff. And then there's the little tiny little stuff that, that takes it to the finish.
Yeah, and same with that analogy, right? If you buy a house and going into it that you're going to do like 4 rooms in the house to make them how you want, you don't do all 4 rooms at one time either, and that's the thing. It's like there's stages, and you might start with the bathroom, and then you might do, a bedroom, and then you might do the big project is the living room, or the family room. And so that's truly when we're building a dream or a vision, I think that's how it goes. Like for me, it was I was very fortunate. Things sort of, I wouldn't say they landed in my lap, but they were in front of me. Nothing just dropped out of the sky, but like I was led to the next step and the next step and the next step. And I didn't always see it. That's the piece of when we can get into the stillness and get more centered and grounded in our physical body instead of spinning in our brains.
Yeah.
We're able to discern, I think, more easily, more gracefully, and a little bit quicker than if we're just spinning around.
Oh, yeah.
In a loop.
Yes. That anxiety feeling or that overwhelmed feeling or the what ifing, like all your energy is about like different paths instead of, the creation or like, and then looking to the end instead of what's the next step. Yeah. I don't think we're very creative when we're, in that
It's
mode.
overwhelming.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's enough for them to stop.
Which is so sad.
It is, because then we don't reach our path, we don't reach our purpose, and we're not helping to expand other people in the world as we're meant to.
Yep, and the world is losing that impact that you were put on this earth to make.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so thank you for doing your work of releasing people and getting their energy aligned and moving in the right direction so that they can fulfill their purpose and make their big impact in the world.
Thank you.
It's important. Well, so thank you so much for being with me today. And as I've already said, you are doing such important work. Anything that releases people and provides them the freedom to be who they were made to be is an absolute necessary service in this world. And if you'd like to connect with Martha, her website will be on the show notes for today's episode. So you can go to defeatthedrama.com, click on the podcast tab, and then go to episode 147 for Martha Blessing's interview. And her website is marthablessing.com. So, but that link will also be there as well. So I encourage you to, I'll have also a little synopsis of our discussion today, but thank you so much, Martha, for joining me. And thank you for all the important work that you're doing.
Well, thank you so much, Kirsten, for having me and for the work that you're doing and just bringing people who are wanting to create and lead and bring impact into the world and having them on your podcast so that other people can be exposed to the help and the guidance and what's going on in the world and the dreams and visions that they can build.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So thank you. And to all of you, get out there, do what you must to make your important impact in the world and make it a great day.